Hi. Uh, I got I got the idea for this lesson from something a cousin of mine had shared on Facebook this spring. Um, Apparently, there used to be a radio commentator named Paul Harvey, which, showing my age, I had never even heard of him until I saw it on Facebook. People older, those of you older than me probably have. Back in the 60s, he did a speech called "If I Were the Devil," and it was like what he was saying is, Paul Harvey was saying, if I was the devil, here would be my master scheme to bring down America. And there's a couple versions of this floating around on the internet. As far as I can tell, this is the 1965 version. Now, you could probably Google it and you might prove me totally wrong. But they all say pretty similar to the same thing. But this is, as far as I can tell, the actual 1965 version that he said. And I'm going to read it to you. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I would of course want to engulf the whole earth in darkness. I would have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I would not be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I should set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I would begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve. Do as you please, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper, the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what is bad is good and what is good is square. In the ears of the young marrieds, I would whisper that work is debasing, that cocktail parties are good for you. I would caution them not to be extreme in religion and patriotism and moral conduct. And the old I would teach to pray. I would teach them to say after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. If I were the devil, I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. And then, if I were the devil, I'd get organized. I'd infiltrate unions and urge more loafing and less work, because idle hands usually work for me. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction, and I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I would encourage the schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Let those run wild. I would designate an atheist to front for me before the highest courts in the land, and I would get preachers to say she's right. With flattery and promises of power, I could get the courts to rule what I construe as against God and in favor of pornography, and thus I would evict God from the courthouses, then from the schoolhouse, then from the houses of Congress, and then, in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion. I would deify science because that way men would become smart enough to create super weapons, but not wise enough to control them. If I were Satan, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I would take from those who have, and I would give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And then my police state would force everybody back to work. Then I could separate families, putting children in uniform, women in coal mine, and objectors in slave camps. In other words, if I were Satan, I'd just keep on doing what he's doing. And this was in 1965, and I kind of read through this. Actually, I think it was an audio file on Facebook. I just turned the volume down while I was at work and listened to it. But anyway. And some of this stuff was actually so accurate to what society was today, I didn't even believe this was actually a real thing until I checked. But, if you look through the Old Testament, I think Israel would have done good to hear something like this. If you look, I think it's in Isaiah chapter 28, Israel/Judah is being warned to turn away from everything. Look in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, God is citing some of the things Israel did wrong in the past. Mostly here he's talking in chapter 10, first 11 verses, so he's talking about more of Israel coming out of Egypt. But I think it could apply to pretty much all their other screw-ups too. But I'll read this. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant, how that all our fathers were under the cloud and passed through the sea. All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, People sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of you also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. Now, as I said, all the stuff in the Old Testament, all the screw-ups Israel made, is written for our encouragement. And I don't know Paul Harvey particularly, but I'd say this was meant for his encouragement as well. And the good thing about us is we don't have to be like Israel. We don't have to screw up, hang out for a few generations, wait for a deliverer. Our deliverer already came. Jesus came for all of us. And really all we have to do here in this building and society in general is just realize Jesus already came for all of us. People out there are still actually craving that. Where I've worked with people, students I've taught in college, you talk to them, they're not really that far gone as you hear about in Old Testament times. You know, there's still a chance for us to get back to what we're going. And so all we have to do is tell them about Christ and actually live our lives in such a way that they actually want to hang out with us and want to be like us. Thank you.